Elizabeth Warren was my professor. I started Harvard Law School at age 19, and my first class was contracts. Those of you who know me know I'm not a morning person, especially in the cold snow of a Boston winter. So, not surprisingly, I would show up late to class. And Elizabeth Warren had no problem calling me out. She was very Socratic or old school in her teaching style, which meant that it was question and answer when it came to how she taught contracts and how she taught her classes. And of course, you're never gonna win with someone like Elizabeth Warren. She's an expert at the law, an expert at debate, so no matter what your answer was, she's gonna school you. So I'd show up late, and before I even took my seat, she would do the following. Mr. Romani, just stop right there. Thank you for joining us this morning. And this is me being 5-10 minutes late. So literally, I'm standing up. She wouldn't even let me sit down. She said, before you sit down, Mr. Romani, why don't you tell us about the holding of whatever case we're supposed to read? So I'm standing up, I'm stumbling, I'm bumbling, and trying to answer the question. And she would just tear me apart in front of the entire class. And this is just me starting law school, totally embarrassing myself in front of my classmates. And I came in thinking I was the shit. I was an arrogant punk kid who did really well in college, did really well in high school, but it was just a different level of competition in law school, especially at Harvard. She really humbled me, and frankly, I probably needed to be humbled. So I started coming to class on time, and I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna embarrass myself. I'm not gonna give her an excuse to come after me. I'd be there on time with my coffee. I'd sit there trying to get through that first semester. So fast forward to the end of the semester, and we had a take-home final, which means that you show up at 8 a.m., they give you your questions, you rush home and work on it, and bring it back at 4 p.m. So you had 8 hours to answer the questions for the final. For her class, she ended up having 2 questions on the final. And, I got the questions, I worked, I typed, and I remember typing 20-something pages for these 2 questions. And it was like 3:55. I finally finish, I print out the answers, and I'm like running back to school to turn it in to make sure I'm not late. I submit it, I wait a couple weeks, and then I get my grade. It's emailed to us, and I get a C. Now a C at Harvard is like an F. It's like an F minus. No one gets a C. If you do really bad, you get like a BB minus. That's the type of curve and grade inflation they have over there. I'm like, oh my God, is this because she hates me? Is this because I was late? Am I really an idiot? I thought I was super smart. So I email her, Professor Warren, I just got my grade. I can't help but notice that, I got a C. I know that's a really poor grade. Is it something I did? Is there anything I can do to improve my grade? She responds back right away. She's like, it's not anything you did. It's just you didn't answer the second part of question 1, and you didn't answer the first part of question 2. So I had to grade it the way I did. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Didn't I submit 22 pages? She's like, no, you submitted 12 pages. So I'm like, oh my God. I realized that when I printed it, for some reason, my printer omitted 8 pages or 10 pages in the middle, and it ended up being the end of question 1, beginning of question 2. I'm like, oh my God, I have the actual file. I have all the pages. Can I submit it to you so you can regrade all the pages? She's like, you can't. I can't make that decision. You have to appeal to the academic committee. I'm like, okay, no problem. I haven't done anything wrong. I have the file. I have the metadata. It shows when it was created. It shows when it was last edited. I'm gonna be good. So I go to I schedule a time to appear before the academic committee. So I go up there, and it's all these old school professors at Harvard. One of them I'll never forget. His name was Arthur Miller. He was the professor that the movie The Paper Chase was based on. Super old school Socratic guy. So I stand up before the committee. Again, I'm still a little bit arrogant at this point. And I said, members of the committee, do you think that I came up with this master plan to just do part of the first question and part of the second question, and then later work on both questions and try to submit it, to get additional time to trick you and Professor Warren and this entire committee? I'm like, do you think that's the type of diabolical genius I am? Or was this an honest mistake backed by the evidence, and you guys should take the full test and regrade it? He looks at me, he's like, son, we're gonna be the one asking the questions, not you. I'm like, oh, shit. So he starts coming after me. He's like, who do you think you are? This is a Harvard Law School. Why should we treat you differently? Why should we give you a second chance? Everyone else in your class double-checked their work, submitted all the pages on time, but basically you're an idiot, and because of your own incompetence, you want us to throw you a lifetime and give you a second chance? That's not gonna happen. So they just destroyed me in front of this committee. I was just completely demoralized. I went home. A couple days later, they respond. They're gonna give me a chance. I submit the entire test. Professor Warren regrades it, and I get an A. Professor Warren was one of the most unique professors of the law school for these reasons. One, she went to Rutgers. She was one of the only professors that didn't have an Ivy League background. I think she's originally from Texas. So she had this Texas accent when she would teach, and she was a badass, and she was a female in a very male-dominated faculty, and she was absolutely loved. She was super pro-consumer, even at a young age. She was one of the youngest tenured professors there at the time, I remember, and it's interesting how her career sort of developed. Obviously, she ran for Senate there in Massachusetts, and she's really been a big champion of consumer rights ever since then. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met. She's absolutely brilliant, so I'm not surprised that she became a United States Senator, that she became a candidate for president. I think she would be an absolutely amazing president. She's a populist. She will represent the ordinary man or woman against big money and the corporation. So I absolutely love her, and I'm honored and blessed and really lucky to have had her as a professor. Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more Harvard Law School stories, including ones about a current Supreme Court justice and former President Trump's personal attorney, subscribe below and click the bell for notifications.